Hi, my name is Diane Camacho, and I am the founder of DLC Consulting Services. We are a group of legal managers, as I like to say, by trade. We have spent, each of us, more than 25 years managing within law firms, primarily in the San Francisco Bay Area. Since 2013, I have been managing my own firm, and now I support small and solo law firms across the country in various different operational matters and different ways, from helping firms start up to reviewing their operations and helping them run more smoothly and more cost effectively. And today we're going to talk about opening your own firm. And we have not only opened our, helped law firms manage their firms, but have in fact helped attorneys open their own firms from solos to 10 people, kind of things like that. So they're smaller firms, but everything that you're doing when you're opening a firm is going to need to be done no matter what size you are. So today we're going to talk a little bit about the team that you're going to need to have around you, your formation and what that is going to look like, mitigating your liabilities, finances, and technology. We aren't going to really cover any type of HR or hiring. We just don't have time for that. And I'm going to go through my slides relatively quickly. There's a lot of information, but please feel free to put your questions in the Q&A. I will be leaving some time at the end of the session for questions and answers, and I can stay after for maybe 10 or 15 minutes if we need to go over and answer some questions. So we're going to start by pointing out that it's different if you're an attorney with little or no book of business, if you're starting out or you're in a corporate counsel situation and you're leaving corporate counsel and going to start your own practice, versus somebody that's leaving a firm and they have a book of business that's going with them. So what you're setting up is different. Your choices are different for software. There's just some things that are different. Also, if you have little or no business, you may be doing a lot of the things that we're going to be talking about on your own. However, I still believe no matter how big you are or who you are, you do need special people on your team. And that is a CPA. And if that CPA does bookkeeping, great. If not, then you need somebody to help you do your books. You need a banker, and I'm not talking Wells Fargo. I'm talking a personal banker that can help you, that knows what an IOLTA account is. They can help you talk about funding and options for lines and all of those kinds of things for not only a small business, but a law firm. So you want a banker that knows law firms. You want a business attorney. You need an insurance broker. You need an IT professional, meaning somebody that can help you set up your IT, make sure that you're secure, and help you be able to work wherever you want to work and make sure that all of your information, your client's information, is secure. And then you're going to need some marketing support. And that can be just somebody that helps you with your website or your landing page, but you'll need some of that. So this is what I would consider your team. You also have to know what type of entity you're going to be. It's basically centers around your personal liability and your taxes and whether you're going to be in a partnership or not. Those are kinds of things that you need to take into consideration. And that's what you really need to decide on before you start registering your business or doing any of the formation documents. And I encourage you to speak with a CPA and a business attorney before you settle on what type of entity you want. When I started out, I operate exactly like a law firm. I have billable hours. I have people that work for me. I pay them, all the same kind of thing. And when I started out, I didn't incorporate. I didn't create a formal entity, if you will. I just worked as if I were a sole proprietor. A few years in, I wanted to get a line of credit and see if there was any way I could get funding to supplement the growth of my business. And because I wasn't incorporated, I couldn't get any type of loan or any type of credit cards or anything like that. And not only did I have to incorporate, but I had to be incorporated for a certain period of time. So if I would have known that, I might have incorporated when I started out. So if I would have spoken to a business attorney, they might have shared that with me. So it's one of the things that, business attorneys, as an attorney, you probably can buy somebody lunch and have them give you basic information, but you're also going to want to have somebody that really looks at your documentation and possibly helps you file all the proper documents and get ready to pay all of your taxes. So the formation is really deciding what your business entity is going to be, as we just discussed, deciding where your physical address is going to be, and what kinds of agreements or documents you're going to need to formalize your business. The assumption is that you're going to already know what your business name is for our purposes, and you're going to already have decided on a formal structure. But again, the CPA and business attorney are the people you want to go to for that. Before you have a business license, you're going to have a name, and you're going to have some kind of formal structure decided upon. And then we're going to talk about businesses, license, taxes, and licenses in the Bar Association. So licenses are based on your business type, and they're based on where you're going to be doing business. For example, if you are in Beverly Hills, you're going to need a business license for the state of California, and you're going to need a business license for the city of Beverly Hills. If you are going to be doing business in Los Angeles more than 7 days a year, you're going to need to pay taxes there, which means you need to have a license. So business licenses and taxes all kind of mesh together. For my purposes, I have an employee that lives in San Francisco, and I have to pay taxes on the revenue for her. And so I have to track and have a license in San Francisco as well. So it just depends on where you want to do business. And you should, again, doing the research yourself or finding an attorney that knows about the areas that you want to practice in. You also will definitely need a federal tax ID. That's kind of the bare minimum. If you're going to have employees or you're going to pay yourself as if you were an employee, you're going to need a California payroll tax ID through EDD, through your payroll taxes. And you're going to have to register with the state bar. And you probably all know that. And if you're changing from one firm to another, you have to let the state bar know about that. So one of the things to think about when you're talking about your formation is where you're going to get your mail. You may not want to use your home address as your business address. You may want to have a PO box. Now, when you're getting your mail and you're registering your business, you're going to have a place to get your mail. And I recommend having a physical address with something like UPS or mailboxes, etc. That way you can get your mail there. They will open it and scan it to you, and you'll have a physical address so people can deliver boxes and things like that. One of the things you want to look out for when you're looking for a service like this is the services that give you a local address. However, your mail goes to a big facility in the desert somewhere and gets sorted there. You want to make sure that you can drive up to the place your mail is delivered and pick it up yourself. You're not going to be able to do that in a warehouse in the desert. So just make sure when you're looking for these types of services, you ask them where your mail is going to be delivered and where you could pick it up. So that's one of the things that we found out. The other thing that's important is to think about what phone number you're going to use. I have a client now, two attorneys have been in business for about 4 years, and they've been using their personal cell phones. And now they're expanding. They want to hire people. And now we have to think about what we're going to do about a phone system. And you can get 8x8 and Ring Central and things like that, where you can get a phone number and you can get kind of a virtual phone, or you can get a phone that they send to you and it's on your desk. But I really recommend not using your personal cell phone. Now, since they've been using it for 4 years, we have to kind of separate their business and their personal addresses and all of that kind of thing, so that they have a place where people can call them on their business phone. So use that to kind of think about your cell phone, and you can get another cell phone number. You can probably get another cell phone and just have the calls forwarded to your personal cell phone. But if you need to separate the two, you'll be able to do that. And then to think about whether you want to work from outside of your home or not. We all know that many things have gone virtual. Most of us are in some kind of ad hoc virtual environment, and you need to decide whether that's going to work for you. If you need to have a physical address, there are places that you can rent an office in a suite that has a receptionist and has conference rooms and some services for you. You can do something like Regis, where you just rent an office so many hours a month, and then you can go to any Regis office and use that. I kind of like that. I have a daughter in Bakersfield, so it's nice to be able to go to Bakersfield, visit, and have a place to work during the day and not be distracted by my grandchildren, and still be able to visit in the evenings. So thinking about not only where you want to practice today, but where else you might want to practice. Is there a family cabin in Tahoe that you would like to be able to work out of? Well, you're going to need to make sure that you have the right internet and security and whatnot for those different locations as well. And then we have to talk about mitigating liability. Now you're not going to be under the umbrella of some other law firm if you've been in a law firm, or you're going to expose yourself to something that you've never had to do before if you're in a situation where you're a brand new attorney and haven't had to be responsible for your liability. When we talk about insurance, you're going to want to have professional liability insurance. You're going to have general property and casualty insurance. If you have employees, you're going to make sure you have workers' compensation insurance before you hire your staff or attorneys, and you can usually get that through ADP or whoever your payroll provider is. I highly recommend cyber insurance. We have seen a real uptick in cyber crimes against small law firms. We have firms that are under 10 attorneys and have been hit with cyber attacks. They have been hit with situations where their server basically got unplugged from the wall where their server was being hosted, and we were given a drive with all of their documents and accounting software on it and said, here you go, and we had to figure out how we were going to make that work. We've had ransom attacks and various different situations, and it's been very costly. And if they didn't have cyber insurance, one of them was probably going to be out of business, quite frankly. These are not little expenses. They could be asking for $50,000 to release your documents, but the expense of it and the lost revenue and the waiting for the time it takes for them to release it and you to get your documents back. There's a lot of money can be expended in that kind of an effort, hundreds of thousands of dollars. The other thing that I think is important is that you should have life insurance that covers your business liability. This is something personal, but I think that it's important that if you have employees or you have debt that is associated with your business, you have some kind of life insurance to help the person that is going to be taking over wind down your business or transition it to another attorney. And then when we're talking about liability and we're talking about the different documents you should have at hand and use, we're talking about an engagement agreement, which we're all very familiar with. And we're going to talk a little bit more about engagement agreements in the next slide, but that's something that you definitely want to have right away. There's disengagement letters, meaning you have now finished the case and you have told the client, okay, we are done. This is your last bill. these are your documents, or this is what I'm going to be doing with your documents. And we're not your attorney on this matter anymore. You don't want somebody coming back 3 years later and saying something, they got a lien that was filed against them based on some settlement from 3 years ago, and you handled that case, and that now they think that you're responsible for helping them with this issue that is an outlier from that case. So make sure that you use the disengagement letter. It's not often used, very frankly, but it's something that you should put in place at the beginning and use. One of the things about starting your own firm is you have a clean slate, and you can start with the proper practices and the proper agreements and the proper systems, and just incorporate that into the way you do business. And then you can have it going forward. There's also the issue with I'm not taking your case letter. So when you're advertising on your internet, your website, and people are filling out a form and they are giving information about the case, they may be giving you information that you wouldn't normally have taken if you were doing it verbally or you were doing just a basic screening call. You're going to want to make it clear that you are not taking their case. And it could be an email. If it's an email exchange, in some way, you should have in place a standard reply that says, thank you for your interest. We are not able to take your case. And maybe you give them an offer to send them to the state bar for a referral or something. But be very clear about the fact that you are not taking their case. You are not their attorney, and you are not responsible for this case or helping them with this case. And then, of course, there's the disclaimer on our emails and the disclaimers on our websites and those kinds of things that we're most familiar with. Now, when we're talking about an engagement letter, now an engagement agreement, engagement letter, retainer agreement, whatever you want to call it, there is a handout that you've gotten that has some information from the state bar and has some language, and you can kind of cut and paste different paragraphs and create an engagement agreement. But there's some things that should be pointed out and that have changed a little bit since I started doing this 35 years ago. One of the things you want to be clear about is when you're giving a description of your services, if there's any ambiguity, you should be telling them, the potential client, what you are not handling. So if you are handling a divorce per se, and there is a dispute about the college fund and you're not going to handle that, that needs to be in the engagement letter, things like that. The other thing to think about is use of contract attorneys. Now, if you're a small firm and you're starting out, you may want to use contract attorneys for various different tasks or situations. That should be in your engagement agreement. And it should be a notification to the client that you will be using people outside of your firm, and you will be still supervising them and all of the different things that are required. Maybe there's a different billing rate for that person, or maybe you have a specific person that you use and you want to name that person. But in some way, identify the fact that you may be or will be using contract attorneys. That should be in your engagement agreement. Maybe it's a paragraph you add when you want to add it and you think you need to add it. With flat fee retainers, there's been a little bit of a change in the way that we can handle flat fee retainers. If you're doing flat fee work and the flat fee is less than $1,000, then you can put that money into your operating account. If it's more than $1,000, you can put it in your operating account, but you must state it in your engagement letter, and you must state that the client has the option of putting that money in your trust account. And this is strictly a business decision. I'm not sure it's the best idea to put your retainers into your operating account unless you're going to be working on that case that month and are going to need that money that month. If you're not planning on using the retainer funds that month, then you are using money that you haven't earned and may not be billing yet. So you just have to think about your cash flow and how you want to work that when you start deciding whether your retainers are going to go into trust or they're going to go into your operating. So just keep that in mind when you're thinking about it. It sounds like it's a great concept. Yay, it can help. But then you need to really think about if you're only doing retainers and you get, you're starting out and you get 15 new cases in the first 2 months, but you're not going to be working on them all until, 5 or 6 months later when it finishes. Is that really how you want your cash to be? Document retention. This came up, early in the 2000s when everybody decided that I shouldn't be paying offsite storage for all of the boxes of old client records. What are we going to do now? We want to destroy them. Well, there's a whole process you have to go through in order to destroy client records. I'm not going to get into that. However, if you outline it in your engagement letter, it takes 50% to 75% of the battle away. Remember, we're now talking about e-files and emails as well. So what is your policy going to be in regards to that? Many small firms are just returning the information to their clients at the end of the case. They do not keep any records. They keep information that they think would be a form, so an agreement that you might want to use again. Maybe you keep that in your library directory or your forms directory, like a brief bank. It might be some pleadings. I don't know. There might be some documents that you want to save as a form document, and you may want to just redact them and use them as a form document. But you need to think about whether you want to have responsibility for those electronic files and for your emails, and really what are you going to need and how long are you going to need it? What are the laws about keeping information and what type of law you would practice and all of those kinds of things. But really outlining it very clearly in your engagement letter is going to behoove you. The other thing that's relatively new is the electronic communications. So you should always have a way to communicate with your client electronically and securely. Some way for them to send you confidential information securely. It should be encrypted, or there should be some portal or some way. And there's many different ways, and you'll find them, and they're listed on a software handout I've given you. But that doesn't mean that the client is necessarily going to send you the information securely. You can provide the system to do that, and you can use it. But if the client doesn't use it and they get hacked, sending you information, you shouldn't be responsible for that. That should be outlined in your engagement agreement, that this is the system that we use. We, encourage you to use it. If you do not use it, we are not responsible for any hacking or lost information or however it's worded. So those are kind of new things that kind of go over and above the standard. This is what we're going to do. This is the mediation language. This is where we work. All of the standard kinds of things. Those are things that I think are worth paying special attention to and are kind of more recent additions to the needs of an engagement agreement. So things to think about when you're talking and thinking about your liability. Your business should be in your trust. And I didn't learn this until I was at a seminar that was given by a trust attorney about 6 months ago, maybe a little bit longer than that. And it really makes sense because in my trust, it allows my husband, if he survives me, to take care of things. And if I have a business and my business needs to write checks to pay bills, and I have employees that need to be paid and things like that, it's nice to know that he'll be able to take care of that until something else can be arranged. So now my business is my trust. There's also I'm told, and I haven't seen it, that there is a an actual business trust that can be created. And I don't know about that. I've just heard of that. So thinking about how you're going to handle your business if something should happen unexpectedly. I think I talked about this already, life insurance to cover your business life, your liabilities of your business. You don't want to have your loved ones worrying about whether, you know, the deposition company is going to be hounding them because there's a bill outstanding. What happens if you become incapacitated, or what happens if you want to take a vacation? So for solos, I think it would be important to have somebody, kind of a buddy system, if you will, that would be able to kind of reciprocally take over your business if something should happen unexpectedly. At least come in and help the family figure out what to do, or to take care of things for a short period of time if you're incapacitated for a short period of time. And I have seen attorneys who have colleagues that will do this for them, and it's kind of a reciprocal agreement. And it may not be written, and it probably should be written, and there's things you should give that person, like passwords. However, it would be a good idea to think about that. And if you're not going into business with somebody else, if you're going in with yourself, then to take that into consideration. And this can work as well for taking a vacation, is having another attorney who's available in an emergency to take care of that problem that might arise if you're not at your desk for a week or 2 weeks. We all check our email. We all are going to never completely unplug. However, it's nice to know that you have somebody else that's kind of watching your back if you're, I don't know, scuba diving all day and a client called and they're in a panic. So just kind of keep those things in mind. We're going to talk about finances and some suggestions and some things to look out for. And we're going to start with the trust and IOLTA. I have a whole hour session on this, and I'll be actually giving it to your bar association next month. But just to kind of touch on 3 areas that are important, and 3 areas that can get you in trouble and get you disbarred, is the record keeping. You must have general ledgers for each client that you have money for that shows the money coming in and the money going out, when it was dispersed, why it was dispersed, and a running balance. So it has to be a general ledger. If you're looking at practice management software, you want to look at the general ledger for your trust account before you make a decision on whether you want to secure that software. Reconciling means you must reconcile your bank account with your time and billing software. And this is where a lot of firms get into a little bit of trouble. They have their bookkeeper who reconciles their trust account with their bank, and then they manage their bills and give notice to their clients out of a time and billing software. And they're not looking at both of them together and making sure that they balance. So that's something that you want to make sure you're doing, is reconciling those two. And co-mingling money. Co-mingling money can mean you get a distribution for a settlement and you put it in your operating account and start writing checks out of your operating account to pay people. It goes into your trust account, and you pay yourself out of the trust account and you pay everybody else out of the trust account. So you don't want to put any of your money, any of a client's money, into your operating account. If you have a trust account, which you should have a different payment link than your operating account. And you should be giving out the trust deposit link to people that you want to either fund or replenish their trust. That should be a different link than those people that are paying their bills to you. It's not okay to have everything go into operating, and then when you check and you're looking at the end of the week, you transfer money into the trust. That's not okay. And when we're talking about small firms, we're talking about finances, and it's sometimes difficult to have that check and balance that we in accounting know is very important, meaning that the person that writes the check shouldn't sign the check. The person that sends out the bill shouldn't be depositing the money into the bank, those kinds of things. It's difficult in a small firm, but it's not impossible, and it should be done. You should be reviewing your bank statements. You should get your bank statements unopened or in some way electronically so that they can't be modified, and you should look at those every month. You'll be able to see if something looks wacky, if money's going to a weird vendor, or if you thought you got more money but it's not in there, those kinds of things. It's simple. You open it up and you look at it. It's something that you should be doing. You can give access to your accounts to your bookkeeper to print out your statements, but do nothing else. And if you have a business bank, they can help you set these up so that you make sure that everything else is secure. They're not allowed to make transfers. They're not allowed to pay bills from it, whatever you don't want them to be able to do. And you should have a very good understanding of what gets billed every month to who. So you have somebody doing your billing, and you should be able to go into your time and billing report and look at what bills were sent out that month, what bills were generated and to who, so that if you have a client and you know they have 2 matters and they get 3 bills, something's wrong with that. Why are they getting 3 bills? And people are not intentionally coming in to work for you in order to steal from you. They aren't. And we all think the people that work for us would never do that. But you'd be surprised how many times employees get in a bind. They have a child who needs special medication and they can't make the payment this month. So I'll just take a little bit of money here and they won't know, and I'll put it back when I get paid, and all of that kind of thing. One of the things that is said in accounting is you don't set your employees up to allow them to steal from you. I'm saying it not bad. I'm saying it badly, but you want to make sure that you have checks and balances in place so that they are not tempted or allowed to do that. And that goes for your accounts payable as well. You should be signing the checks. And if you have something like bill.com, you should be having to approve those bills before they get paid. And there are ways to make sure that that happens. You should also, again, if you're looking at your bank statement, you see what was paid and if something looked a little off. You need to start with a budget. And I know it's one of those things that I personally like to do for other people and don't like to do for myself. However, you're going to want to know how much money you need personally for your personal expenses. You're going to need to know how much you need to run your business. And you're going to need to know how much you're going to get paid and when you're going to get paid. Because remember, if you're going to be opening your firm on April 1 and you start billing that month, your bills go out in May. Hopefully you collect at the end of May. You may not collect until June. So you have that lag time. Plus, it's going to take a period of time for you to ramp up and have the income you need to take care of all of your personal and business expenses, quite possibly. So you've got this. Now, what are you going to do when you don't have enough money to make your mortgage payment? Where are you going to get that money? Do you have savings? Do you have a retirement money that you can pull against? Do you have credit cards that you can use? Is there a line of credit available through your bank? Those kinds of things. You want to think about that and kind of plot out what you think you might need as far as income. If you're an attorney who's leaving a firm and you're starting out your own practice and you know all your clients are coming with you and you have a $500,000 to $1 million practice, you're probably going to be fine. but you should still understand your expenses and what your requirements are for meeting those. It can be an Excel spreadsheet. It doesn't have to be fancy. Reports are important, and a lot of times small firms do not really look at their reports. Maybe they don't have good reports available to them with their time and billing software. Maybe they don't really know what they're supposed to look at or how they're supposed to craft those reports. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to have the profit and loss in the balance sheet that your bank requires and that we all are, know and love, and your accountant wants to have. But you also should have some way of tracking the hours worked, the hours billed, and the hours collected. I always say it really doesn't matter. You really have to understand what you're collecting, because you could bill 2,000 hours a year and bill 1,500 and only collect 1,000. Really, you're doing pro bono for 1,000 hours a year. So it's really what you collect. And the other things that you need to look for is what that looks like for the people that are working with you or for you. So you're understanding if there are problems, do they need to be addressed sooner than later? This isn't something that you look at once a year when it's time to review your compensation for folks. This is something that you look at every month. And you're very clear about, oh, that's right, they billed less this month because they got married and they were out of the office for 2 weeks. Things like that. You should be able to identify why somebody's hours are done, including your own, and why some clients are not paying. And there are very few small firms that do not take a healthy deposit or retainer. You might be new and you might be kind of like, ooh, I'm really nervous about asking for money up front. You really need to think about that and think about whether you're worth making sure you get paid or not. And you can save that money until the end of the case, or you can use it as you go. The other thing that you're going to want to track is the types of cases that you're getting and what the profitability on those types of cases is. Is it a high volume, low profit margin, or is it a low volume, high profit margin? And what kinds of cases do you like to do? And what kind of cases do you want to do? And all of those kinds of things. And if you're not tracking those, then it's going to be really hard. You're going to be trying to do everything by memory. And again, a practice management software will do this for you. It's not like you have to have a spreadsheet for this. And then the other thing is you really want to track your referral sources. You want to understand where your clients are coming from and where your time and money is being spent in order to get those new clients. And one of the things that I think is important to know is your marketing ROI. Small firms, in my humble opinion, are often paying more than they need to on flat fee marketing costs. One of the reasons that is because they are not tracking their ROI well. They are not tracking where they're getting their clients, how much they're paying for that, and all of that kind of thing. So if we look at something that I recommend you do is you say, okay, so this month I'm spending $2,000 on marketing. So every month I have a $2,000 budget on marketing, and I got 100 leads from that. So that means that each lead was $100. 50% of those leads convert into cases, and the average case is worth $5,000. So my ROI is, and I don't know if it's the technical term for ROI, but it cost me $200 for each $5,000. So that's an important number to know. If it's costing you $4,000 for a $5,000 case, or $1,000 for a $3,000 case, is that really where you want to be spending your time and money, or your money in this instance? And is there a better way of spending your money and getting better clients? Don't forget to track your time. You should have a matter in your time and billing system that that allows you to track your marketing, your administration, and any other type of administrative tasks that you are going to be doing, because your time is money. Things to think about. Where are you spending your time? What's the value of your time? So if you're billing at $350 an hour and it's taking you 3 hours to do your billing, is that really a good use of your time? And should you be looking for somebody to do your billing for you? If you are billing at $350 an hour and you are spending 2 days researching software, is that really the best use of your time? You can't do that unless you're tracking. And the other thing, your bookkeeper can't be disbarred. You need to make sure you're taking care of your trust account. You can get disbarred. So we're going to run through technology and then hopefully leave some time for questions. Yeah. Okay, so technology, the basics. What you basically need is you need a word processing program, you need an email program, you need something to store your document, your client documents securely. You need to have some research software, and a lot of people now are using free legal research platforms. They're not necessarily running to Westlaw or Lexis for their research. You need to have a time and billing program. You need to have a finance program like a QuickBooks, or it might be wrapped up in your time and billing. And you should have some way of creating forms or document automation or ways to do the same document systematically and faster. And that could be macros, it could be document automation, it could be a good brief bank that you just pull it up and put your information in it. Some way to start tracking your key documents that you use over and over and having them available to you. And then depending on your practice, you may need to have a docketing system, a calendaring system. When you're choosing software and hardware, and I gave you a handout that talks about what different software does what for you. But you need to make sure that it's versatile, it's mobile, it's secure, it's something common, and that there is support for it. So remember, you're starting out. You don't need to be testing software. You don't need to be using free software. Free software is going to lead you to frustration and possible breaches of confidentiality and breaches of your security system. You need to make sure that your software is always updated. 99% of the updates are really security patches. So you definitely want to be doing those. You don't want to be using Windows 7 because that's what you have currently on your home computer and you're just going to use your home computer for work. Not a good idea. Make a decision. Are you going to be an Apple or a PC user? They are two different languages. They have different programs that work in each one. Are you going to use Google Sheets because you don't like Microsoft? What are the downsides? Google Sheets, if you're a litigation firm, you're going to have Word anyway because you can't do table of authorities and table of contents on Google Sheets, as far as I know. If you need to outsource things, are the people that you need to outsource them to are the paralegal consultants, are the attorney consultants? Do they really know Google Sheets? Or are they really going to be much more efficient on Word? Everyone is saying that, oh, our software works on an Apple and a PC because it's web-based. Guess what? If you integrate that software with your Outlook or your Word or anything like that, they are going to have some kind of add-in that associates those two documents and those two programs. And they aren't going to work the same. Again, Apple and PC are two different computer languages. I never recommend that attorneys start out their firms using Apple computers because you don't have the breadth of programs, you don't have the depth of support, and you're going to find yourself like kind of trapped in an Apple environment. So they'll say, "Oh, we integrate with Office." Sure, we do, even though we're an Apple. Well, that means you have to use Office Online. And if anybody has tried to do their email with Outlook Online, it's a completely different experience than email on your computer, Outlook on your computer. The other thing that you want to look for is when they say, yes, we're web-based. They aren't web-based if you don't have a URL to get to them. For instance, they'll say, oh, yeah, we're web-based. And then they have to put a VPN type program on your computer, meaning that if you go to use your mom's computer, you don't have the VPN to attach to that software company's database in Denver. So you're not going to have the same experience. So if a company says, yes, we're cloud-based, and they cannot give you a URL to your information, like a google.com, they are not web-based. They are actually co-hosting their software, and you are VPNing into their data center, if that makes sense. And again, it might be fine. It may never be a problem, but be aware of what you're deciding on. Be aware of what you purchase. Some things to think about. Hacking is happening all the time, and they're not looking at size per se. They are just spraying the world with, I don't know, spams and sharks and all of this stuff, and we're getting hacked because they don't know that you're only a law firm with 3 people. Make sure that you have that way to securely exchange information with your clients. Your business computer should never be part of your family computer. Buy a business computer and put your security on it and keep it away from everybody in the family, and make sure that they know that this isn't something that they get to play on. It's a different animal. The security is different. The programs are different. And you don't want your work computer loaded up with a bunch of videos from Snapchat or something that your kids are doing. Just buy them a computer that's different. You can buy a computer for $500 now. Training. Get training. Take the time to get training. If you have employees, pay for the training. And then 3 to 6 months after you have the program and you're using it, pay for more training. That's when you're really digging in and you're thinking, wow, it would be nice if it did this. Or I keep doing this. Is this the best way to do it? That's when you can get your advanced training. So I recommend that you not only go to videos on their site or the YouTube channel, but you find somebody that knows that program and you know, pay for an hour of their time and get some training. That's it. Now you're all ready to open up your own firms, right? Let's see. We have some questions. Could there be a follow-up on reconciliation? I'm thinking that that might be next month's session, because that's all about trust accounting and management reports. Advice to get a first client for a solo. Your friends, your family, your any kind of group you're involved in. So if you're in a tennis club, you want to start taking people out for lunch and talking to them about your new practice. I would talk to there's networking groups. There's BNI that a lot of solos belong to, depending on your practice area. If that's a good way for you to start to get clients. That's where I would start. Are there companies that will help you quickly get your fees, banking, insurance up to code? My company helps law firms, helps attorneys start their law firms. If you have a firm that is already in existence, there are companies like my company that can come in and do auditing, I think. So it just depends on what you're looking for, Joshua. Do you have advice on getting bookkeeping support staff? There are bookkeeping companies that work for law firms only. I would reach out to fellow attorneys and find out if they have a bookkeeper that understands law firms and trusts accounts, and if that person is taking on new clients. If you're looking at support staff, my company, for our clients, we use Indeed and have a relatively decent return on that. It's a hard market, but that's kind of where I would go. Then I would, if I were looking for a bookkeeper, I'd probably search on Google for a law firm bookkeeper. There's probably folks out that do this. Ellie, it depends on where you are. Up in Northern California, personally, I use mechanics. Up in Northern California, there's a bank that I really love. It's First Republic Bank. They're very good up here with law firms. And I would kind of, there might be something on your website that can lead you to a bank that's partnering with the Bar Association. Look in your town where you are actually practicing law, and find a small bank and go in there and ask them if they work with attorneys and how they handle trust accounts. And if they know what they're talking about, they'll tell you. If they don't know what they're talking about, you don't want to bank there. You don't want to bank at Wells Fargo. I mean, I'm probably not supposed to say this. I don't bank at big box stores. I want to be personal. I want to have them know me, and you get that from a small business bank. You get personalized service. They call you and say, "Hey, did you know that you've got a check here that's not clearing?" The name of my company is DLC Consulting Services, and there you go. There you go. First Bank in Beverly Hills has been amazing. There you go. Oh, okay. May you talk about how to handle the ethical points to watch out for clients of old firm who may be potential clients for new firm? Well, you want to start out with looking at, if you were a partner at the old firm, you need to look at the partnership agreement of the old firm. If you weren't, you need to look at your letter, your agreement when you left the firm and what it says in there. That's the first place you start. And if it were me, I wouldn't necessarily go out to find and recruit clients of my old firm. If a client comes to you and says, "Hey, I want to work with you, Maria," I don't necessarily think that that's a problem, but you're going to need to be very clear about that and talk to your peers about that. That would be more in line with legal advice. If you're going to be working with somebody who has worked on the other side, that's an ethical wall, and there are things that you need to put in place for that as well. Maria, I wouldn't advertise or contact them. I would advertise. I wouldn't contact. And somebody on this call might feel differently and might reach out to you, but I wouldn't attempt to take clients from my other firm. I would make sure that my community knew where I was, and that the out of office, or the she's left the firm, is accurate on your old email. And and they'll find you if they want to find you. And make sure your LinkedIn is up to date. All of that information has good contact information for you. Any other questions? Oh wait, here's the chat. Yeah, the chat's got all the handouts. Well, I hope I didn't run through things too quickly. It's a big endeavor. It's not something that we take lightly. As when I started my firm, I just kind of started working. But there's a lot to think about as an attorney and doing things properly. But there's a lot of help out there. Check with your local bar, check with the state bar, check with the ABA. They have forms, they have information. So there's resources out there for you. How to increase visibility on your Google search? Yeah. Well, if you're an attorney who has been practicing, you can ask for Google or Yelp reviews by going to your Google and Yelp and grabbing the URL and then emailing people and asking them to do a review. SEO is a tricky thing. It's something that you need to be very formulaic about. You need to make sure that you have a really good website, that somebody that knows what they're doing about SEO has set up your website, that you know what keywords that you need to use when you're writing articles, when you're posting things on LinkedIn. You need to be active, and LinkedIn is kind of, I don't know if one bought the other or whatever, but they work together. YouTube and Google are owned by the same folks, so if you can get YouTube videos up and those linked to your website, that's good if you're doing any speaking. Like for example, this will go up on the Beverly Hills website. It will also go up on my YouTube channel, which will be linked to my website. Google likes that. You have to be active, but you don't have to be active an hour a week. You go in there, maybe it's every morning while you're having your coffee, you go into LinkedIn and you go into I don't know what you do in LinkedIn, but you would go, Google, but you would go into LinkedIn and you would check the groups you're involved in. You might reply to somebody, you might comment, you might post something of interest, you might be involved in Facebook, depending on your practice area. Maybe Facebook is a good place for you to be visible, and you have a Facebook page and you're posting information because you're an estate planning attorney and you're posting information about estate planning, what's important about estate planning, things like that. All of it helps. I don't think you need to spend 10 hours a week. I think you need to spend some time and you need to write and post blogs and information and link them to your website. Well, we're at 1:30. Anybody has any last questions? It doesn't look like it. So I really appreciate the fact that you are here and have spent the hour with me, and hopefully it's been of value to you. And I look forward to possibly seeing you next month. Take care. Oh, wait, I got a 14. Hang on, there might be another question. Oh, most recommended type of advertising for a small firm. It really depends on your practice. I always say advertise where your clients are. For me, my clients are on LinkedIn. My clients are attorneys, so that's where I advertise. If you are an attorney that works with corporate, you work with corporate attorneys and you pick up their overflow, then you want to advertise where corporate attorneys are. If you work with environmental farm products, then you want to advertise with the farming association. You need to know where your clients are, and that's where you need to advertise. And whatever type of advertisement gets you the most visibility. So if you can speak at one of the organizations, such as I'm doing now, if you can sponsor something, if you can write an article for their newspaper or newsletter, things like that, where they can get to know you. Okay, hopefully this was worth your time. Thank you very much for being here.